I discovered my mother-in-law is having an affair with a 22-year-old apprentice at our family business, and now she's threatening my job and marriage. I never thought I'd be posting here about my mother-in-law's affair, but here we are. 6 months ago, my husband Ethan and I relocated to his hometown to join his family's furniture business. The move meant giving up my established accounting career in the city, but I was promised a financial controller position at the family business. Seemed like a fair trade at the time. My mother-in-law Diana has been both my boss and something of a mother figure to me since I lost my own mom as a teenager. She's always been warm, supportive, and genuinely seemed to care about me. She helped us find our house, introduced me to everyone in town, and even went out of her way to make sure I felt included in family traditions. I really thought we had a special bond. When we moved, we stretched ourselves financially to buy a home near the workshop. The mortgage is substantial, but we were confident about our decision because the family business was supposed to provide stable income. My father-in-law Robert had been talking about stepping back, with Ethan eventually taking over more responsibilities. Everything seemed perfect on paper. Last week, I was working late going through quarterly numbers. Diana had been working late too, and we were the last ones in the office. We both have identical company laptops. You can probably see where this is going. I accidentally took her laptop home instead of mine. Didn't realize until I got home and opened it up while Ethan was cooking dinner. It was already powered on, just in sleep mode, and when it woke up, I immediately noticed I was looking at Diana's email account. I was about to close it when a notification popped up from someone named Jake A, with the preview showing, "Can't wait to feel your." My first thought was it must be spam, but then I recognized the name. Jake is the 22-year-old apprentice who joined the business 3 months ago. Diana personally recruited him after seeing his work at some craft fair. Everyone thought it was just Diana, always nurturing talent. There were dozens of intimate exchanges dating back 2 months. They referenced their special time in the workshop after hours and plans to meet at a hotel the following weekend. There were photos I wish I could unsee, including one of Diana wearing only a necklace I recognized as the 25th anniversary gift from my father-in-law. But it gets worse. The emails mentioned expensive gifts Diana had purchased for Jake using what they called the special account. I immediately recognized this as a secondary company expense account that Diana told me was for client development. As the financial controller, I'd seen the charges, but never questioned them because Diana insisted they were legitimate business expenses. I closed the laptop the second I heard Ethan coming through the front door. He immediately asked if I was okay. I mumbled something about a headache and somehow made it through dinner while he chatted about how great it was working with his parents again and how his mother seemed happier and more energetic than she's been in years. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Robert, who has always been kind to me and works for the business. I thought about Ethan, who idolizes his mother and left our city life behind to be closer to his family. And honestly, I thought about our mortgage and what would happen if this blew up the business. The next morning, I returned the laptop to Diana with a casual, "Grabbed the wrong one yesterday," and she thanked me with a different smile. I've been watching her closely since then, and I'm almost certain she knows that I know. She keeps giving me these looks when she thinks I'm not paying attention. After a week of anxiety, I decided to discreetly look into the company finances. Diana has been disguising personal expenses as business costs for months. What started as gifts for Jake has expanded to hotel charges and unexplained withdrawals totaling nearly $15,000 over just 3 months. That might not sound astronomical, but for a business that Robert recently described as cash tight but asset rich, it's significant. Yesterday, I was working late again when I heard voices from the workshop. I walked down to find Diana and Jake in an intimate embrace among the half-finished furniture. I froze in the doorway, accidentally knocking over a can of varnish. Diana's face shifted from shock to composure as she straightened her blouse. "We were just discussing the Thompson Commission," she said, while Jake stared at the floor, his face bright red. "The Thompson Commission that was delivered last week," I replied. Diana approached me, asking if I'd been checking up on her. When I mentioned the financial discrepancies, she dismissed them as necessary business expenses and suggested I wasn't suited for my position if I was going to misinterpret standard business practices. Jake slipped out during this conversation, leaving me alone with Diana. She went from defensive to tearfully confiding that her marriage has been emotionally dead for years. She reminded me of everything she's done for Ethan and me. "You're like a daughter to me. "You wouldn't hurt me, would you?" she said. "This would destroy Robert and the business that Ethan is counting on inheriting someday." I drove home, feeling manipulated and trapped. That evening, Ethan mentioned his father is worried about cash flow issues at the business. Robert is even considering a second mortgage on their family property to cover unexpected shortfalls. I nearly told Ethan everything right then, but something held me back. The situation has only gotten worse since then. Diana watches my every move at work and has begun restricting my access to certain financial records. She's opened a secret credit line in the company's name that's nearly maxed out at $30,000, primarily for expenses related to Jake. Meanwhile, Robert announced everyone needs to take a temporary 15% pay cut due to these unexpected business expenses, which directly affects our ability to make mortgage payments. My relationship with Ethan is becoming strained because I can't explain why I'm so stressed out without revealing what I know. He's starting to question my sudden paranoia about money, and Diana has already started planting seeds of doubt, telling him I've been acting erratically at work. Today, she cornered me in my office, closed the door, and said she noticed me accessing financial records outside my normal duties. She put her hand on my shoulder and told me she's been thinking about restructuring the office staff, and that, with the financial pressure we're under, we may need to eliminate some positions. The threat couldn't have been clearer. When I asked if she was threatening me, she smiled and said, "Not at all. I'm just reminding you that loyalty to family should be your priority. You wouldn't be here without me." I found myself standing up to her, pointing out that the business wouldn't be in financial trouble if company funds weren't being misappropriated. She hissed, "You have no idea what I've sacrificed for this family. 25 years, married to a man who hasn't really seen me in a decade. I deserve something for myself." Then she said, "If you breathe a word of this to anyone, I'll make sure Ethan knows it was your financial mismanagement that caused these problems." Who do you think he'll believe? His mother or the woman who's been acting strangely since we gave her access to our accounts? I'm absolutely trapped. Last night, our mortgage payment bounced due to the pay cut. Diana is systematically undermining my credibility with Ethan and Robert, and the business that our entire financial future depends on is being drained to finance her affair with a guy who's barely out of college. I keep going back and forth on what to do. If I tell Ethan or Robert, Diana will paint me as unstable or incompetent. If I stay silent, I'm complicit in the financial destruction of a family business. I'm lost and terrified and could really use some outside perspective here. Now for the first update. First of all, I'm completely overwhelmed by the response to my original post. Thank you all for the support and advice during what's been the most stressful week of my life. I didn't expect so many people would care about my mother-in-law's affair drama. Edit. I keep seeing questions about whether I have copies of the financial records. Yes, I've been documenting everything and storing backup files on my personal cloud storage that Diana doesn't know about. Not my first experience with sketchy accounting practices, just never expected it from family. It's been exactly 1 week since I discovered Diana's affair with Jake, and every day at work has been challenging. I returned her laptop first thing Monday morning with a casual, grabbed the wrong one yesterday, and tried to act completely normal. Diana thanked me with a strange smile that made me uneasy. I'm almost certain she knows that I know. She keeps giving me these long, evaluating looks when she thinks I'm focused on something else. The stress is making me physically ill. I've barely slept, can't eat much, and jumped when Ethan touched my shoulder yesterday morning, which of course made him ask what was wrong with me. There are so many things at stake: our marriage, my in-laws' marriage, the family business, our financial stability. After days of anxiety and weighing my options, many of which you guys suggested in the comments, thank you, I decided to investigate the company finances more thoroughly. I needed to understand exactly how serious the financial situation really is. What I found was worse than I expected. Diana has been disguising personal expenses as business costs for months now. The client development account I mentioned in my original post. It started with gifts for Jake, expensive watches, custom boots, even a motorcycle helmet for God's sake, but expanded to hotel charges, dinners, and unexplained cash withdrawals totaling nearly $15,000 over just 3 months. For those asking why this matters for a family business, $15,000 might not sound like a fortune to some of you, but for a business Robert recently described as cash-tight but asset-rich, it's significant. We're a custom furniture company, not Amazon. Yesterday I was working late going through some purchase orders when I heard voices from the workshop. Everyone else had gone home hours ago. I walked down the hallway to the workshop area and I saw Diana and Jake together, with his hands under her blouse and them kissing. I froze in the doorway. Then I accidentally knocked over a can of varnish on a workbench near the door. Diana and Jake jumped apart immediately. Diana said, "We were just discussing the Thompson Commission." Jake stared at the floor. "The Thompson Commission that was delivered last week," I replied. My voice was shaking. I couldn't help it. Diana approached me and asked if I'd been checking up on her, her tone making it clear that this would be a serious problem if true. When I mentioned the financial discrepancies I'd found, she dismissed them as necessary business expenses and suggested I wasn't suited for my position if I was going to misinterpret standard business practices. Jake left me alone with Diana, who changed tactics once we were alone. She confided that her marriage has been emotionally dead for years. Several of you guessed in the comments that she'd try to justify her actions. You were spot on. She reminded me of everything she's done for Ethan and me, helping us find our house, introducing me to everyone in town, including me in family traditions. "You're like a daughter to me. You wouldn't hurt me, would you?" she said. "This would destroy Robert and the business that Ethan is counting on inheriting someday." I felt manipulated and trapped. I mumbled something non-committal and got out of there as quickly as possible. The drive home was difficult. I had to pull over twice to calm down enough to see the road. That evening, Ethan mentioned his father is worried about cash flow issues at the business. Apparently, Robert is even considering a second mortgage on their family property to cover what he called unexpected shortfalls. I nearly told Ethan everything right then, but something held me back. Partly fear, partly the knowledge that without solid proof, it would be my word against Diana's. I've spent the last few days in a constant state of anxiety. This isn't just a personal betrayal anymore. It's threatening our financial future. The mortgage on our new house is substantial, and we were counting on both our salaries to make it work. If the business tanks because Diana is draining money to finance her affair with a guy barely out of college, we could lose everything. To those who asked about my own financial situation in the comments, 1. Yes, I left a stable accounting job for this too. No, we don't have massive savings after buying the house. 3. The job market in this small town is extremely limited for someone with my specialized skills. I've been watching Diana and Jake closely at work. They think they're careful, but not enough. The looks they exchange when they think no one is watching. The brushing of hands when passing tools or papers. The suspicious coincidences of both needing to check inventory at the same time. If I wasn't looking for it, I might not have noticed, but now it is obvious. One particularly disturbing pattern I've noticed is how Diana treats Jake compared to the other apprentices. He gets the best assignments, the most attention, and special training sessions that always happen after everyone else has left. The other apprentices have started to notice the favoritism too. I overheard 2 of them complaining about it in the break room yesterday. I'm trying to figure out what to do next. Part of me wants to confront Diana directly and tell her to stop using company money for personal expenses before she bankrupts the business. Another part thinks I should tell Robert what's happening. It's his business and marriage being destroyed. And then there's Ethan. My husband deserves to know what's happening, but I'm terrified of how this will affect him. He idolizes his mother. Many of you advised me to gather evidence before doing anything. That's exactly what I'm doing. I've been documenting everything I can find in the financial records. My biggest fear is that if I speak up without absolute proof, Diana will twist this around and make me look like the problem. She's already started making comments to Ethan about how stressed I seem at work and how I might not be adjusting well to the family business environment. She's planting seeds of doubt about me, and it's working. Ethan asked me last night if I was happy here or if I regretted the move. I feel like I'm trapped in an impossible situation. If I stay silent, I'm complicit in financial fraud that could ruin all our lives. If I speak up, I risk losing my husband, my job, and the family I thought I was joining. The coming days will be crucial as I continue gathering evidence of Diana's financial misconduct. I'll post another update when I have more information or after I've decided how to handle this situation. Now for the second update. For those who've been following my mother-in-law affair saga, things have somehow managed to get even worse. I honestly didn't think that was possible. Thank you all for the support on my previous posts. Your advice has been keeping me sane during what's turning into the most stressful month of my life. It's been 2 weeks since I confronted Diana after catching her with Jake in the workshop, and the tension at work has become almost unbearable. Diana watches my every move now, always finding reasons to hover near my office or check in on what I'm working on. I've noticed she started restricting my access to certain financial records. Folders that were previously shared with me are suddenly password protected, and when I asked about it, she gave me some vague explanation about client privacy concerns, which makes zero sense for internal financial documents. The worst part is that I can't even act surprised or upset about these changes without raising suspicion. I have to pretend everything is normal, while Diana systematically cuts off my access to information that could prove what she's doing. Yesterday, I discovered something that was alarming. While reviewing some paperwork that had been accidentally left on the shared printer, I found that Diana has opened a secret credit line in the company's name that's nearly maxed out at $30,000. The statements were addressed to a P.O. box I'd never seen before, not our business address. Looking at the charges, it's clear where the money has gone. Expensive restaurants in the next town over, hotel charges, and several large purchases at jewelry stores and men's clothing retailers. I managed to make copies of these documents before anyone noticed and hid them in my personal files. I'm building a paper trail now because I'm increasingly certain this is going to escalate soon. Meanwhile, Robert, my father-in-law and majority owner, called an all-staff meeting last Friday to announce that everyone needs to take a temporary 15% pay cut due to unexpected business expenses. He explained that orders are steady, but cash flow has tightened. I knew exactly where the money was going. This pay cut couldn't have come at a worse time. Ethan and I stretched ourselves thin buying our house, and we were already cutting it close each month. A 15% reduction means we're now officially in trouble with our mortgage payments. When I tried to discuss this with Ethan, he got frustrated and said I was overreacting, that his parents wouldn't let things get too bad, and that the situation is temporary. He doesn't understand why I'm so paranoid about money lately. To the commenters who suggested I should have told Ethan immediately, I get where you're coming from, but it's so much more complicated when you're actually living it. The thought of potentially destroying his relationship with his mother, who he adores, is paralyzing. The workplace dynamics have gotten increasingly toxic too. Jake has been promoted to project manager, bypassing craftspeople who have been with the company for years. 2 of our most experienced woodworkers have already started looking for jobs elsewhere, and others are grumbling about favoritism. Of course, only I know the real reason for Jake's rise, and it has nothing to do with his craftsmanship. On Wednesday, I was working on quarterly tax filings when Diana entered my office and closed the door behind her. I've noticed you accessing financial records outside your normal duties, she said. I've been thinking about restructuring the office staff. With the financial pressure we're under, we may need to eliminate some positions. The threat was clear. When I asked if she was threatening me, she said, "Not at all. I'm just reminding you that loyalty to family should be your priority. You wouldn't be here without me." I stood up, pointing out that the business wouldn't be in financial trouble if company funds weren't being misappropriated for personal expenses. She responded, "You have no idea what I've sacrificed for this family. 25 years married to a man who hasn't really seen me in a decade. I deserve something for myself." Our argument was interrupted when Jake knocked and entered, asking him about some project details while I remained in the room. After he left, she whispered something that made me worried. "If you breathe a word of this to anyone, I'll make sure Ethan knows it was your financial mismanagement that caused these problems." Who do you think he'll believe? His mother or the woman who's been acting strangely since we gave her access to our accounts? I spent the rest of the day trying to process the fact that my mother-in-law had essentially declared war on me. The drive home was hectic as I thought through scenarios, none of them good. That evening, I discovered our mortgage payment had bounced due to the recent pay cut. As I was at our kitchen table trying to figure out which bills we could postpone to cover the mortgage, Ethan was in the shower. His phone buzzed with an incoming text, and I normally wouldn't look, but the preview caught my eye. It was from Diana. Worried about OP, she's been acting erratically at work, making concerning financial decisions. We should talk tomorrow, just us. I realized Diana was already setting the groundwork to discredit me if I spoke up about the affair or financial improprieties. She's turning Ethan against me before I can even explain what's happening. The irony of her accusing me of financial mismanagement while she's draining the company accounts for her boy toy is not lost on me. Ethan emerged from the shower, noticed my expression, and asked what was wrong. I deflected, mentioning only the bounced mortgage payment. He seemed annoyed rather than concerned, saying I should have been more careful with our budget, knowing the pay cut was coming. The disconnect between us has never felt wider. He has no idea what I'm dealing with, and I don't know how to tell him without sounding like I'm making excuses or attacking his mother. We went to bed barely speaking. After he fell asleep, I stayed awake trying to decide what to do next. I know I need to tell Ethan everything, but I'm worried Diana will make good on her threat to blame me. Without concrete evidence that she can't manipulate or delete, it would be my word against hers. And right now, I'm not confident whose side Ethan would take. Many of you are asking if I've consulted a lawyer. Not yet. I'm worried about the costs since we're already struggling financially with the pay cut. But you're right that I should probably get legal advice before moving forward. I'll look into free consultations today. After a sleepless night, I made a decision. I need to secure copies of all the financial evidence I can find before Diana manages to completely lock me out or alter the records. This weekend, while the office is empty, I'm going back to make copies of everything. The secret credit line statements, the expense reports, the emails if I can access them again. I need proof that Diana is stealing from the company to finance her affair with Jake. The stakes have never been higher. If I do nothing, the business could collapse under Diana's financial misconduct, and Ethan and I would lose everything. If I speak up without enough evidence, I could lose Ethan. Either way, the family I thought I was joining is already fracturing. For those wondering why I don't just go to Robert directly, he and Diana have been married for 25 years. Without solid proof, I'm afraid he might not believe me either, or worse, tell Diana about my accusations, which would give her time to cover her tracks and definitely get me fired. I watched Diana systematically destroy the business my husband is supposed to inherit someday. The woman I once viewed as a mother figure is now threatening me, gaslighting my husband and stealing from her family, all while maintaining this facade that everyone else seems to believe. I'm still not sure what the right path forward is with this situation, but your comments and support help more than you know. I'll update again once I've gathered more evidence and figured out how to approach Ethan with the truth. Now for the final update. Final update. Mill's affair and company financial disaster has finally come to a head. I want to thank everyone who followed this story and offered support and advice during what's been the most stressful month of my life. So it's been almost 2 weeks since my last post. I spent that weekend at the office going through every financial record I could access. I'm glad I did, because by Monday morning, Diana had locked me out of most systems. When I tried logging into our accounting software, I got an unauthorized access message, which was ridiculous considering I'm the financial controller. What I managed to document that weekend was worse than I expected. Diana hadn't just opened that $30K credit line. She'd actually taken out a small business loan of $75 in the company's name 6 months ago when Jake started working there. The loan paperwork had Robert's signature on it, but after seeing other documents, I'm 99% sure she forged it. I found receipts for a weekend getaway to a luxury mountain resort, $4,300, a custom-made watch, $8,900, and payments toward an apartment lease in the next town over, $1,800 a month for the past 3 months. The most damning thing I found was an email thread where Diana and Jake were planning their future. She'd promised to leave Robert and restructure the business so she and Jake could start fresh with their share of the company assets. There was even a detailed list of which equipment and client relationships they planned to take when they left, taking the most profitable parts of the business. Monday was a nightmare. Not only was I locked out of the systems, but 3 different coworkers separately asked me if I was doing okay. By lunchtime, I overheard someone mention that Diana was concerned about significant accounting irregularities I'd made. She'd convinced people I was embezzling, which was terrifying. I also discovered Diana had scheduled a business development conference in Florida for the following week, a $7,000 trip for her and Jake with separate hotels, though the reservations showed connecting room requests. They were planning a romantic getaway on the company dime while the rest of us had taken pay cuts. That evening, I decided it was time. I couldn't wait any longer. Diana was moving too fast to discredit me. I sat Ethan down at our kitchen table and showed him everything. The emails between Diana and Jake, including some photos I really wish I could unsee, the financial documents showing the diverted funds, the loan paperwork with the questionable signature, and their plans to take over the business. I expected shock, disbelief, maybe even some denial. What I wasn't prepared for was anger, directed at me. Ethan accused me of fabricating evidence because I was unhappy about moving to his hometown. He said I was looking for someone to blame for our financial problems. When I tried showing him the original emails on my laptop, he accused me of creating fake accounts just to hurt his mother because I was always jealous of their relationship. While we were arguing, Robert's car pulled into our driveway. Apparently, Diana had called him saying I was having some kind of mental health crisis and had dragged Ethan into it. Ethan stormed out to talk to his dad, giving me a look of betrayal as he slammed the door. I sat there with my laptop open, fighting back tears and wondering if I'd just destroyed my marriage for nothing. A few minutes later, Robert came in alone. He looked concerned but calm, asking if I was all right. I just gestured to the laptop and said, "See for yourself." I'll never forget the way Robert's face changed as he scrolled through those emails and financial documents. His hands started shaking so badly he had to put the laptop down. He didn't say anything for a long time, just kept shaking his head. "How long have you known?" he finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. While I was explaining everything to Robert, Ethan came back inside. Seeing his father's reaction made him pause. He'd called Diana while outside because midway through my explanation, her car came into our driveway with Jake in the car. Diana wasn't thinking clearly at this point. What followed was the most uncomfortable confrontation I've ever witnessed. Diana burst in ready to defend herself, but froze when she saw Robert scrolling through her messages with Jake standing behind her. Her expression changed from anger to shock to an attempt at casualness as we discovered her messages with Jake. She tried denying it was her in the messages, then claiming Jake had pursued her, then saying Robert had driven her to it by being emotionally distant. When none of that worked, she switched to attacking me for violating her privacy and turning her family against her. Jake just stood there looking uncomfortable. The final straw came when Diana, seeing she wasn't winning anyone over, stated that after 25 years, half the business was hers, and if he tried to punish her, she'd make sure nobody had anything left. Robert straightened up and said, "Get out of my house." The fury in his voice made me take a step back. Diana left with Jake, but not before giving me a look that made it clear this wasn't over. The next 48 hours were chaotic. Robert, as majority owner, immediately locked Diana out of all business accounts and systems. He contacted the company lawyer that same night and started proceedings regarding the misappropriated funds. When word got out about what happened, the company split into factions. Most people were horrified by Diana's actions, especially since the pay cuts were a direct result of her stealing. But a few longtime employees who were close to Diana started spreading rumors that I'd fabricated evidence because I wanted Diana's position in the company. They missed the part where I had zero desire to take on more responsibility in a business that was struggling financially. The family fallout has been equally messy. Diana's sister and a couple of cousins have been sending me nasty messages about exposing private matters that could have been handled discreetly. $100,000 in financial fraud is a family matter we should keep quiet. Robert's side of the family has been supportive, though many are still in shock. As for Ethan, he apologized for not believing me initially. He admitted that Diana had been subtly undermining me for weeks, suggesting I was struggling with the transition to small-town life and implying I might have buyer's remorse about our marriage. Our relationship is still strained. Fundamental trust has been damaged, but we're working on it. He's in therapy now, dealing with the realization that his mother is not who he thought she was. Robert offered me a promotion to financial director with a significant raise, and I've spent the past week reviewing Diana's financial records and discovering how close the business came to bankruptcy. Several employees have already approached me to apologize for believing the rumors about me. Meanwhile, Diana has apparently moved in with Jake temporarily, though rumor has it that relationship is already crumbling now that the money flow has stopped. Robert served her with divorce papers last week and is pursuing legal action to recover the stolen funds. The company credit card charges have been disputed, and the bank is investigating the loan with the questionable signature. Edit. Forgot to mention that we also discovered Diana had been creating fake vendors and invoices to redirect money directly to her personal account for almost a year before the affair even started. The total amount misappropriated is closer to $150,000, when everything is added up, which explains why the business has been struggling despite having a full order book. I wouldn't wish this experience with familial betrayal and financial deception on anyone, but I've learned more about standing up for myself in the past month than in my entire life before that.